Avoid these biggest mistakes in Dokkan Battle. How's it, everybody? Celtic Link here. We're back for another Dokkan Battle video. In today's video, we are talking about some of the biggest mistakes many players make as they start their journey in Dokkan Battle. Right now, we are approaching the 10th anniversary, so many of you are probably watching this as a brand new or returning player. So hopefully you guys find this video helpful, and even if you're a veteran player checking out this video, stay tuned. There may be something you could learn here. So let's go ahead and let's talk about the common mistakes made by many players, right? The game has a lot of early pitfalls that many players often find themselves into. Things such as rushing into summons, mismanaging their resources, and ignoring crucial parts of the story and game. So let's talk about the first thing here, rushing into summons, right? Right now, if you log into game, you'll see about 4 available recommended banners, and 1 more if you include the Elder Kai banner, right? It seems enticing, right? Currently, you have the New Year's Step Up, which, right, they're all discounted steps, right? Being the first with 20 stones, or you'll have these 3+1 banners for the brand new dual Dokkan Fest, Daima Goku and Glorio. These seem like really great deals, right? I do 3 summons, I get, you know, a 1 summon free. That sounds great. Each of these steps gives me something guaranteed. That sounds even better. I want to summon. I just grinded out these 6,000 stones from the story mode and the rest of the game. Well, that may not always be such a great idea, right? Sometimes these banners, while enticing and offer these great deals, are often not the best use of your stones, right? Like right now, summoning on one of these banners would not be the best for you, as we are about 20 days away from the start of the anniversary, where, you know, units coming along are going to be twice as good as what's currently available. So it's not always best to rush into these summons. What I recommend most players do, right? But, you know, as a brand new player, if you've grinded out a bunch of stones, log into YouTube, check, or Reddit or Twitter, check out, you know, some of the major YouTubers, myself included, right? And look at their should you summon videos and take a look, right? Oftentimes these YouTubers will go through the banners and outline, highlight what's good, what's bad about it. My videos specifically will always outline, you know, if you're gonna spend here, what could you possibly lose out on in the future, right? What are some things coming up? These are all things you want to consider before you rush into these summons. Other things you have to consider is like where the meta is at the current moment. We'll get more into that as we talk about late game mistakes later in this video, but right, sometimes it may not be a good idea to summon on these banners because we're at a point where a meta shift might be happening. And that usually happens around these big events like the anniversary. So rushing into summons, never a good idea. Save your stones until some of the better celebrations roll around, like the anniversary, which is in February, Golden Week in April, and Worldwide Celebration in late August and September. Those are kind of the key crucial points you want to be spending your stones, but along the way there may be summons. Just never rush in, right? Make sure you're making an informed decision before you spend all of those stones. Speaking of stones, right? One of the biggest mistakes that a lot of players I see making is ignoring a lot of this available content for stones. A lot of people want the easy stones. A lot of people I see, they go into, well, it's not really easy, right? But a lot of people just focus on doing things like, let's let it load up here, these challenge modes and picking up stones from there, right? Tons of stones are always gained from that. Doing easy A's, tons of stones, right? But one thing a lot of people I have seen, especially early on, is they ignore all of these events here, at least at first, right? A lot of people get to them way later down the road, but hey, if you're entering a big celebration, you do want to focus on getting a lot of these stories done, because there's a lot more to it than just doing these events, right? These events also include, right, missions that, like if we go to this one, that allow you to recruit free-to-play characters, like this one here. Right, as you play through the stage, you can collect up these chocolates. These chocolates can be used. Not only do you get a bunch of stones from his, right, 2 stones each time, which is 16 stones right there. You can trade in for those free-to-play characters, and you can use those free-to-play characters to build a team. Missing out on these stories and the free-to-play characters that come with it is one of the biggest mistakes that I see people making in early Dokkan Battle, right? They just don't see the value in these free-to-play units. But if you are an early game player, you need these units, right? They're going to help you fill out teams. They're going to help you further complete some of these challenge missions, and in the long run, get yourself more stones. This also includes quest mode too, right? A lot of people tend to ignore quest mode because it seems very daunting, right? 6 chapters, well over, I mean, there's over 100 stages at this point, and thousands of stones available, but a lot of players skip out on it, just it not wanting to do the grind. It seems crazy to think about, but there are players out there. Don't do that, right? Make sure, especially as you're entering into these big celebrations, you grind out everything you can, whether it's quest mode, whether it's challenges, whether it's the story, for the free-to-play characters that you can use to fill out your team. That is the biggest thing I can go over for you. The story mode also, right, these story modes events often also have ways to teach you about the game itself and how it's played. The best example of this is with things like the Ginyu Force special training and the Bardock Brawlers, right? Like grinding these guys out actually kind of teach you things about team building and setting up teams to learn how the game is actually played. And I just cannot recommend enough making sure as a new player you spend the time to take down these events. And then finally, right, the last thing when we talk about early game mistakes is the mismanagement of resources. Obviously, this includes Dragon Stones, which we talked about earlier, but this also includes training items and other types of resources, right? Oftentimes when you get a character, right, you'll want to, we'll use this Kid Buu here, right? You'll want to just go into the growth and you want to just start training him, right? You'll throw in whatever, the game gives you all types of ways to level them up, right? You'll want to just throw these on, and oftentimes you'll find, right, you'll want to just throw out your Elder Kais to level up their super attack and, go auto mode on the training items. As an early game player, that's actually not ideal doing it that way, because these resources are very limited for early players. A lot of veteran players, I think, tend to forget this, but it is huge, right? These items are incredibly limited early on in the game, and so you want to make sure that you are, in fact, utilizing what you can properly. Mix and match your items, right? If you're using, a turtle shell item, which gives you, 20k, it's right. If you're using the turtle shell items, which give you 20k, or this one that gives you 40k, right? Or the weighted clothing, or, right, you want to make sure that maybe you're using each one sparingly so you're not using up all your resources, especially if you log in at a time where you get things like candy cane or the weighted headgear. These things, right, only come around so often, and you don't want to just throw them out there willy-nilly, because you could, that they're very valuable, right? This one gives you, what is this? Oh, 1 million EXP, right? You don't want to just throw this out without, on like a free-to-play character. You want to make sure you're utilizing these well. Same goes for the Platinum Turtle Shells, which these actually you can get daily from the Roshi Story event, but not always, but sometimes they can drop. So one of the ways to get around that, right, is coming back to the other thing, right, the quest mode, right? The quest mode has quite a few stages, right? Let's see if we can pull it up here, right? That drop things like these green incredible gems, which, or Zenny, which can all be used to go over to the shop and purchase these items. Like if I head to my treasure here, you guys can see we have, right, we can buy some of these, all right, we can buy Zenny, we can buy training locations, and as we scroll down, we can buy medals and training items with the gems and other resources. So you do want to make sure you get these because it's going to benefit you in the long run. Another way to pick up more resources, and it's infinite so long as you have the stamina to do so, is the where is it here? This one here, the Genius Bulma's Battle Prep, right? You can grind this infinitely for any item you may need, not necessarily training items, but any item you may need. These are also important resources for you to make sure you grind out to build your account, right? These items are incredibly useful for completing difficult challenge events, things like Whis, which are very hard to come by, Ghost Ushers, Princess Snakes, which heal Android 8s, or even these over here, like the on the hard stage, right? You can get things like the Guide Robo, the nuking items like Chilai, Lemo, or the Deborah Cookie, or the mouse or item, right? All of these items help you adjust your stats or increase your attack per key sphere that allow you to more easily defeat one of the whatever boss you're fighting. So again, when we talk about managing of resources, you want to make sure that you are spending your time to grind these things out and utilizing these things properly, right? One of the biggest mistakes I made early game was not taking that time to grind these things out. And newer players have it oh so much easier now that this event is permanently available and you can just grind it out. And this goes for the training items and everything else as well. So, again, make sure you take the time to grind these things out and prepare yourself for the future. Now, let's talk about some mid-game mistakes, right? What are some things, right? You've been playing for a while. You may want to consider, starting to develop your units a little bit more. Well, one of the biggest mistakes, right, people tend to make is ignoring the link level system, right? All characters have, right? Well, so we'll use the Daimogoku here as an example. All characters have a link, a set of links that they can use. Actually, let's not use Daimogoku. Let's use a unit that I have an SSR of. Let's go Majin Buu Saga. Yep, here we go. Okay, so let's compare here. So let's compare the Super Saiyan 3 Goku here, right? If we take a look at him, at level 1, he has this link, Golden Warrior, which gives all enemies defense 5 and key 1, right? At level 10, it gives enemies defense minus 10% and key 1. He has another one, like Limit Breaking Form, right? Attack 5, right, when at level 1, but attack 10 when he's at level 10. Another one, Over in a Flash, key 3 at level 1, but key 3 and attack 7 at level 10, right? Leveling up these links is probably the single most important thing you can do to increase the power of your units and further help you complete many challenging events, right? Like if we come back to the Dokkan Awakened version of that STR Goku and look at his links, right, we can see, right, we have ours at link level 10, right? So minus 10%. We have Limit Breaking Form, plus 10% attack, Kamehameha, plus 10% attack when performing super attack, Saiyan Warrior Race, plus 10%. Like, all of those things add up. And so that's why you want to make sure you take the time to level these links up. Some of the best places to level up are in the quest mode, right? I like to use these stages here, and I'll probably do a separate video outlining all of these together, but I find that the best stages tend to be here in stage 35-6 when using your boosts, right? Speaking of boosts, this is another common mistake that people make, not using them. People tend to only use them for link leveling, but they can also be useful when running Dokkan events for increasing the amount of medals you can drop, as well as increasing the amount of, if you're grinding these stories events, so like the Daima event, for example, you can see that we have an effective category, right? So we have a 235% chance of increasing the amount of characters we can drop. So if we're doing stage 1 here, we would increase the amount of Gokus we could get now, and plus increase our chance of doing so. You add in a boost to that, and you essentially, right, if we add in our boost, we would use extra stamina, but it would increase our chance. This is really helpful in sort of narrowing down that grind, whether it's for Dokkan events or these story mode. This is one of the best things that you can do to speed along your process and growth as a player. And then finally, the sort of last mid-game mistakes that I see a lot of people make is, prioritizing the wrong units, right? A lot of people, they'll summon on a banner and because they see a unit they like, or, they see these videos that show like, wow, this character can do 50 million damage, right? He looks really good. But many times, especially as a new or mid-game player, you may not have the units necessary to make that unit perform at the level that you see these in these videos. So it's important that, right, you analyze your box and look at, right, who you have in order to make a team work. For example, right, like if I'm wanting to run the new Goku who got an EZA just recently. This guy here, well, actually, he's not a good example. This guy is a great example, right? This guy just got an EZA about a month ago, and he's a really, really great EZA. He's extremely powerful. But if you don't have any Majin Buu Saga Gokus to go, and you want to try to summon on a banner to pull this guy, well, that's not very helpful to you because you don't have the units to run him, right? Another great example of this is the recent Tech Buhan, right? He wants to be on a big power absorption team, often around other Buu-type units. If you don't have the Buu-type units to use with him, he's not a very good or useful unit to you. He may be useful to you later on, but at that point, it's better off, again, like I said, rushing into those summons. You might be better off holding your stones until later on. So, just because you see a unit that looks good doesn't mean, necessarily that summoning on them is the best thing to do, especially if you're a free-to-play player, right? It's oftentimes better just to wait until these units come back on better banners, or you have the coins available to purchase them, right? That is usually the best thing to do, unless you know for sure you have the teams to run around them. This is really, really crucial for building your accounts. And then finally, let's talk about some late game mistakes, right? These are some of the things that I see even veteran players making now. One of the biggest ones I see, and I know this sounds crazy, but one of the biggest mistakes that I see a lot of even veteran players make is ignoring this event right here, even though it does give out stones. Let's see if I can find it here. It's down here. Right here, this support memory event, right? What this event allows you to do is pick up, boost to various support memories if you complete the missions. Now, most people just do the missions and then ignore what comes with them, but Throughout the game, you have chances to pick up, right, whether it's through story mode, whether it's through Dragon Ball Story, or, right, again, boosting them through that event. You get these support memories. These support memories are incredibly useful for helping players complete events, right, because they give certain buffs or certain, or complete certain actions that help the player out, like, right, this one that you get for completing ESBR. Increases all Goku's family category allies by 20%. Like, that's huge. Like, it's one of the most common categories in the game, right? Or we have another one, like this Bulma one, right? Recovers 50% HP, 2 turns, Pure Saiyans and Earthlings get 10% attack and defense, and from the 4th turn, or, 40% less with Pure Saiyans or Earthlings. Like, that's a huge buff, right? This one too, for Vegeta's family, for 3 turns buff, right? All of these things are incredibly powerful. Where's another good one here? Right, so like this one helps out, units like the Coolers, who are always fun to run, right? Wicked Bloodline 10%, right? But also giving them key, right? Early on, this is incredibly helpful because early on these units tend to struggle for key, because a lot of them tend to build up, right? Like a lot of Wicked Bloodline units, so that's incredibly useful. Another good one is like this one here, giving 15% for 3 turns to everyone, doesn't matter the category, but it also an additional for Otherworld Warriors. This is a huge buff because Otherworld Warriors is kind of a tough category to master, right? There are not many good units, so pretty good. Pretty good support memory. And again, like I said, a lot of people ignore these, right? Because, a lot of people are focused on using no items. A lot of veteran players are focused on these no items, but these can be incredibly useful to you to complete these challenging events. So don't ignore them. They are some of the it is probably the second most useful thing to you to complete an event besides the items themselves. Another big thing that I see a lot of players making is ignoring the power of support units. And I know this sounds crazy, but, right, it is there. I see oftentimes an argument being made that, right, oh, well, when we're showcasing a unit, right, it doesn't matter because you're using a support unit, right? And people tend to take that, and I've seen this happen, right? People tend to take that as, oh, don't use support units. Well, no, you definitely want to be using support unit. They help you complete events so much easier by giving you oftentimes that extra power for completing said events, right? So some good examples here are, we'll use the Tech Buhan, for example. He's not a good example because he is a Dokkan Fest, so he's doing other things. A great example is like the Tech Goten here. He recently Easy Aid, and he has a great little buff to anyone on Gifted Warriors or Siblings Bond, which is a lot of characters here on teams you would run him on, like Super Saiyans, or like I have showcased here, Majin Buu Saga, right? He gives 60% to those allies. That is huge. That makes units like Gotenks or Vegetas perform exceptionally well, so much more than they would normally. It's just, you don't want to ignore having him on the team. Units like these do have enough to get them by and help you complete events. And so you want to make sure that you are placing them on your teams to help you complete the events, provided, of course, you have the teams to work around them, right? Oftentimes they are not staples to teams, but rather additions. Another big thing that I see players mistakes I see players making, veteran players, is what we call skipping the meta, right? This happens a lot during anniversary time. Now, I haven't heard it much this year, but last year, right, before the global sync, right, we would always start to hear people like, I'm going to skip out on the anniversary banners. And, right, so to give you an example of what that looks like, that would have literally meant skipping out on someone like Beast Gohan right here, right? Skipping out for worldwide because worldwide might be better, right? Skipping out on an entire year's worth of meta, right? Probably not, right? And this is Beast Gohan is probably the best example of this, right? Because this dude is still probably #1 LR since his debut last February. So Just to give you an idea, like if you skipped this unit at the beginning of last year or in July for global players, right, you lost out on an entire year's worth of meta. Not to say that there aren't units that you could compete and have fun with, but you're more than likely going to end up struggling a lot more with whatever available events are coming. And why it's huge that you don't skip out on this, right? Like if we're in an anniversary, that you attempt to try to grab one of the main units, because oftentimes from the point forward that we see a meta shift at like a worldwide or at like an anniversary, the events that come after tend to be designed around the power of these units. So skipping out on them means you lack the power, you lack the defense, you lack the offense needed to complete the events, right? Like if you skipped out on the 9th anniversary entirely, there was no way up until maybe Golden Week that you would have been able to complete any of the 9th anniversary content, right? You would have needed at a minimum at least Gogeta or Beast to complete it. Broly, I think you probably could get away with. He would carry a lot, but he would start to struggle as that team began to fill off, as his own team began to fill off as the year went on, at least until worldwide, when he saw a resurgence thanks to all the Brolys. But that's just last year. There's no guarantee that that happens again this year, right? So just to throw out there, you know, one of the biggest mistakes I see a lot of veteran players make is skipping out on these major celebrations, and they end up struggling in the long run. So that is just some of the late game mistakes that people can make. So, guys, that is it. That is some of the biggest mistakes, common mid-game and late-game mistakes that I see a lot of players making. And I felt like, you know, just taking a little bit of time to talk about these and what we could do to improve ourselves as we get ready for the 10th anniversary, right? Some of the biggest mistakes early players are making: rushing into summons, mismanaging resources, and ignoring, right, the free-to-play story characters, right? Do not do those things if you are a brand new player. Take your time, grind them out, organize your items, use them wisely. Check out some of my guides that talk about where to get a lot of these. I will probably do an updated one here soon, but, you know, make sure you don't ignore these things. If you're sort of coming along the way, you might be a returning player, make sure you focus on summoning for units you can actually use, and do not ignore link leveling. I've seen a lot more talk lately about links not mattering. They do. They make a huge difference in unit performance. And then finally, right, those late game mistakes. Don't ignore support units, and do your best to try to stay current with the meta when possible. So, guys, that is it for the video. If you like the video, make sure you hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and in the comments down below, let us know what are some of the early game mistakes you made when you first started Dokkan, right? I myself am guilty of some of these. I rushed into my summons and when I first started, and I do regret it. I rushed into a Christmas banner attempting to pull the 5-year LR Vegito. Biggest mistake I ever made in my Dokkan career. But let us know what your biggest mistakes were in the comments down below. And let us know if you found this guide helpful. Otherwise, guys, as always, thanks for watching, and aloha.